So, imagine being like 7 years old.
Okay.
You're just sitting in your living room and, yeah, maybe you're watching a cartoon or playing with a toy, just doing completely normal 7-year-old
Right.
things.
Just being a kid.
Exactly, just
Yeah.
being a kid. And then the energy in the room completely shifts.
Oh, yeah. You can feel it.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
feel it. You look up and the adult in the room, like the person whose entire biological and social imperative is to protect you and feed you,
Keep the world from crushing you.
right? Keep the world away. They're suddenly looking at you with this just profound, terrifying emptiness.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're spiraling.
Mm-hmm.
And in that split second, you realize something that no kid should ever have to realize, which is that you are the only adult in the house.
Wow. Yeah.
And they're expecting you to save them.
It's an absolutely chilling realization. And it happens in an instant, you know?
Yeah.
The child doesn't get a manual, they don't get a warning, they just get handed this massive emotional weight of a fully grown human being.
Yeah. And that invisible crushing weight is exactly what we're going to be unpacking today. So welcome to our deep dive. We're looking at the psychological phenomenon of the parentified child.
It's such an important topic.
It really is. And specifically, we're doing a deep dive into Professor Sam Vaknin's lecture. It's called How Hurt Parents Parentified Children.
Right.
And our goal here isn't just to, list off clinical terms. We want to really step into the shoes of a child who goes through this.
Which is so crucial because we want to explore how they survive it in the moment.
Exactly.
And more importantly, the incredibly complex, almost unbelievable mental architecture they have to build inside their own heads just to endure it long term.
Right, like how they survive it for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, because we aren't just talking about a quote-unquote difficult childhood here.
No.
We're talking about a fundamental reorganization of a human mind.
It's a total shift.
It is. Vaknin's framework outlines how a child essentially constructs an alternate, internal reality.
Like a mental simulation almost.
Exactly. A permanent mental simulation to manage an external environment that has just completely failed them.
And what's terrifying about Vaknin's framework is that he immediately shatters the most common assumption we have about this.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, when most people hear the term parentified child, or they picture a kid basically acting as the parent,
Right.
your mind instantly jumps to a broken home.
Yeah, you picture severe visible neglect.
Exactly. You picture a parent who has a severe substance abuse issue.
Yeah.
Or, a diagnosed highly disruptive personality disorder. Someone who is just fundamentally toxic.
Right, that's the stereotype.
But Vaknin argues something entirely different. And honestly, I think it's a lot more unsettling.
Oh, it's deeply unsettling because he makes a very deliberate point to say that this phenomenon is not exclusive to inherently toxic families.
Wait, really?
Yeah, that is a massive distinction. You can have parents who are completely mentally healthy. They can be highly secure, deeply mature, fully functioning adults.
With no underlying personality disorders whatsoever.
None. Zero. And yet they can still completely infantilize themselves and parentify their child.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I need to push back on that a bit. It challenges almost everything we assume about resilience.
Sure, yeah.
How does a totally healthy, secure adult, like someone with a good job, good social skills, completely normal baseline, suddenly become the emotional equivalent of a toddler demanding care from a 7-year-old? What is the mechanism there?
The mechanism is a catastrophic system overload.
The system overload.
Right. Vaknin describes it as an encounter with overwhelming trauma. We're talking about a level of pain or a destabilizing event that is so ubiquitous, so all-permeating that the adult's standard coping mechanisms simply collapse.
So it just breaks them.
Completely.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how well put together you are. If the psychological shock is severe enough, those mature adult functions shut down.
Wow.
Yeah. The brain, in a desperate bid for safety, reverts to a helpless infantile state. It's a profound regression.
Okay, so it's think about the electrical grid of a house.
Right.
Imagine you've got this beautifully built modern house. The wiring is top of the line, perfectly up to code. That's our healthy adult.
Right. They're fully functional.
Exactly. They can handle everyday stress, running the microwave, the TV all at once.
Sure.
But then a massive, unprecedented power surge hits, like a direct lightning strike of trauma.
A lightning strike.
To prevent the entire house from literally catching fire and burning to the ground, the main breaker trips.
Just cuts everything off.
Exactly. It deliberately shuts off the main power. The adult loses all of their mature, everyday functionality, and the house drops into this tiny, flickering emergency backup power mode.
Oh, that's a brilliant way to look at it.
And in human psychological terms, that emergency backup power is the state of an infant.
That is exactly what happens. The system cannot process the sheer volume of the destabilizing event, so it trips the breaker to survive. The adult becomes an emotional infant.
Right.
Now, what makes Vaknin's lecture particularly intense is the specific example he uses for this kind of system overloading trauma.
Oh, right. The childbirth example.
Yes, he uses pregnancy and childbirth.
Yeah, and we should note, Vaknin uses some highly controversial, like purely biological language here to make his point.
He really is.
He describes pregnancy as an advanced, all-pervasive systemic state of disability.
Wow.
And he even goes as far as likening the baby in utero to a, quote, parasite feeding off the mother.
Right. And he openly acknowledges in the lecture that this terminology is going to be seen as politically incorrect.
Oh, totally. And just to be clear for our listeners, we aren't endorsing or condemning this view.
No, not at all.
We're just impartially reporting that he's using this intense biological framing to explain why childbirth can be a severe psychological trauma. Like he's trying to isolate the sheer physiological and psychological shock of the experience.
Exactly. He's using this intense language to explain the why.
Right.
Why can a completely healthy woman suddenly experience this massive regression? He's pointing to the immense physical toll, the severe hormonal shifts, and, the perceived loss of bodily autonomy.
It's a total system shock.
Precisely. He is highlighting that childbirth is a systemic trauma. It is a total hijacking of the body's normal state.
And the statistics do back up how profoundly destabilizing this can be, right?
Oh, absolutely. Postpartum dysphoria affects roughly 1 in 3 mothers. So in Vaknin's framework, that overwhelming systemic change acts as the lightning strike you mentioned.
It trips the main breaker.
Right, trips the breaker. The mother, overwhelmed by the physical and emotional devastation of the process, regresses. The mature coping mechanisms go offline, and she emotionally reverts to an infantile state seeking safety.
So the breaker is tripped. The adult is now, for all intents and purposes, functioning emotionally as an infant or a toddler.
Yes, they are entirely vulnerable.
Which brings us to this terrifying void. Because if you're a fully grown adult who has suddenly regressed to the emotional state of a toddler, you're suddenly hyper-aware of how little control you have.
Oh yeah, you are floating in panic.
You are. You've lost your sense of mastery, safety, stability, predictability, and agency.
All of it gone.
And when you're in that regressed state, adrift in that void, you have a desperate, screaming biological need for a secure base.
You need an anchor to reality.
But wait, so if an adult has completely regressed to an infantile state, how do they even identify who to latch on to?
That's the million-dollar question.
Like, why don't they call a friend or rely on a spouse or a parent of their own? Why does the crosshairs fall on their own child?
Immediacy and availability.
Really? Just to whoever is closest.
It is the path of absolute least resistance. When an adult is in that state of infantile panic, they don't have the executive function to reach out, explain their emotional needs to a peer, and negotiate support.
Because they're basically a toddler in their head.
Exactly. They need immediate, unquestioning soothing. And who is standing right in front of them, entirely dependent on them with no ability to walk away or set boundaries?
The child. Oh, man.
It's a child.
It's devastating. It's just devastating in its simplicity. They need a parent, and because the child is physically there, they just flip the script.
They convert the child into the parent.
That's a complete role reversal born out of sheer desperation.
It is. The immediacy of the child's presence becomes a self-soothing, self-comforting mechanism for the regressed adult.
So the parent delegates their own emotional regulation to the kid.
Exactly. The mother becomes the infant. The father becomes the toddler, and the child is drafted into the role of caregiver.
But how does a young child even begin to process this, like functionally day to day?
It's incredibly difficult.
A 7-year-old doesn't have the life experience to regulate themselves, let alone talk a 35-year-old down from a panic attack or manage their depressive episodes. What does that survival look like in real time?
It looks like intense chronic hypervigilance.
Just constantly on edge.
Yes. The child becomes a master at reading microexpressions. They learn to anticipate the parent's emotional weather before the storm even hits.
Wow, so they're always scanning the room?
Always. Functionally, it means the child suppresses every single one of their own needs.
So hunger? Fear, wanting to play?
All of it. Because they recognize that expressing a need will overwhelm the already fragile parent.
That is so sad.
It is.
Yeah.
They become the mediator, the physical caretaker, the emotional sponge. They are absorbing the adult's chaos and trying to project back stability.
You know, it really makes me think of being a passenger on an airplane.
Okay, yeah.
Imagine you're a 7-year-old kid, and the airline let you sit in the co-pilot seat just for fun.
Right. A little treat.
Yeah, you're just looking at the clouds, having a great time.
Yeah.
But suddenly, the actual pilot, like the adult who is entirely responsible for keeping this massive machine in the sky, starts hyperventilating.
Oh, no.
They start crying, they unbuckle their harness, they hand you the steering yoke, and they say, I can't do this. You have to fly it. You have to hold me.
Oh, my God.
You are 7. You don't know what the altimeter is. You don't know how to work the throttle.
Of course not.
But you know with absolute terrifying certainty that if you let go of that yoke, the plane goes down and you both die.
That captures the sheer terror of it perfectly. The child cannot step away from the yoke.
They can't.
If they do, their world ends. The parent is their literal source of survival, food, shelter, safety.
Right. If the parent falls apart, the child is destroyed.
Exactly. So the child grips the wheel, they grip it as hard as they can, completely terrified, sacrificing their own development just to keep the altitude steady.
Just trying not to crash.
Right. They are trapped in this caregiving role because the alternative is annihilation.
Trapped. And because they can't physically escape the airplane, like they can't just unbuckle, parachute out, and find a new family.
No, they're stuck.
Their brain has to figure out a way to process this impossible reality. It has to make the unbearable bearable.
Yes.
And this is the pivot point in Vaknin's lecture that just blew my mind.
It's fascinating.
Because this is where we move from the physical reality of a scary living room into the permanent, invisible architecture of the child's mind.
Right. We move from the external trauma to the internal coping mechanism.
Okay, let's get into that.
Because the physical reality is too chaotic and dangerous, the mind uses a defense mechanism called internalization.
Internalization, okay.
The parentified child internalizes the parentifying mother or father. They take the external threat and bring it inside.
And since we're dealing with an audience that likely knows a bit about psychology, we're talking about introjects here.
Exactly, introjects.
But Vaknin doesn't just treat these as passive memories.
No, not at all.
A memory is something you just recall. He uses words like avatar, internal object, and snapshot.
Yes.
He's describing an active installation. Like the child takes a snapshot of that demanding, terrified parent and installs it permanently as a functioning avatar inside their own psyche.
That's spot on. An introject in this context is not a memory of an event. It is a mental simulation of a dynamic.
Wow.
The child's mind creates a highly detailed, active representation of the parent.
Inside their own head.
Yes. And the crucial, devastating part of this mental simulation is its rigidity.
What do you mean by rigidity?
The avatar only knows one dynamic. It continues to view the child as the parental figure. Always. It continues to demand care, attention, and regulation entirely independent of what the real-world parent is doing.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. It is exactly like downloading a background app on a smartphone that you can never, ever delete.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Right. You know those poorly optimized apps that just constantly run in the background?
Just draining everything, yeah.
Exactly. You're trying to use your phone to live your life. You're trying to focus at school. Maybe later you're trying to navigate college, or you're 30 years old trying to maintain a career.
Right, you're just trying to live.
But this background app of the parent avatar is constantly draining your battery. It's sending you push notifications 24 hours a day, demanding that you fix things, demanding that you soothe it, demanding your emotional energy long after you've moved out of the actual physical house.
That analogy hits the nail on the head because it emphasizes the continuous draining nature of the introject.
It's always there.
Always. The real-world parent might be miles away. The parent might even be deceased.
Wait, really? Even if they've passed away?
Yes. It fundamentally does not matter. The introject is running in the background. Vaknin states this explicitly: these internal objects continue to parentify the child forever, basically.
Forever, basically.
Yes. They insist on a continuation of the parentification. They demand that you perform parental functions for them inside your own mind without pause.
Forever,
Yeah.
basically. I had to stop reading when I hit that phrase. The sheer exhaustion of that.
It's exhausting just to think about.
The parental role is never interrupted. You carry these demanding, panicking ghosts with you into every room you enter for the rest of your life.
Which creates an unbearable internal tension.
I can imagine.
Think about it from a structural standpoint. If you have these demanding parent avatars living inside your head forever, constantly sending you those push notifications, insisting that you act as their caregiver.
Right.
How do you cope with that relentless internal demand? You can't just ignore a core part of your own psyche.
Because that would just drive you crazy, right?
Exactly. If you try to ignore it, it generates massive anxiety, guilt, and emotional distress.
So you have to appease them.
You have to.
You have to answer the notification.
Yes.
But here is where I started losing the thread a bit in the lecture, and where I really need you to break it down for me.
Sure, what part?
Because Vaknin says that to appease these internal parent avatars, the child's mind, quote, wishes to give birth to a new child.
Yes.
And he clarifies he doesn't mean a real biological child. He means an internal, introjected child. What does that actually mean?
It's complex, yeah.
Are we talking about something like dissociative identity disorder, or is this a different mechanism entirely?
No, it's a different mechanism entirely. We aren't talking about split personalities taking over the body.
Okay.
We're talking about the completion of an internal family system. Let's look at the logic of the simulation. Outside, in the real physical world, when the trauma happened, there was a complete family unit, a mother, a father, and a child.
Right. 3 real people.
But inside the child's mind, during that initial trauma of parentification, they only took snapshots of the threats. They only introjected the demanding mother and the demanding father because those are the overwhelming forces they had to manage.
Oh, I see. So inside the mind, the family is incomplete.
Exactly. There's only a mother avatar and a father avatar, both crying out for a parent.
Wow. So the internal landscape is unbalanced. It's just 2 demanding ghosts screaming into the void.
Screaming for care, yes. And the individual cannot function in the real world if their internal world is just a constant state of demanding alarms.
You just couldn't live.
Right. You can't be a full-time parent inside your own mind and still go to work, pay taxes, and have relationships. So the brain invents a workaround.
What's the workaround?
It hires an internal employee to do the job.
Wait, what?
The mind generates a representation of the parentified child. It creates an internal replica of the self whose sole exclusive round-the-clock purpose is to take care of the internal parent avatars.
Wow. Wait, so what does this all mean? To keep this system running, you basically build a ghost of yourself to take care of the ghosts of your parents.
That's precisely it. The internal child has access to the internal objects of the mother and the father. The simulation is complete. The system is closed.
That is just wild.
Yeah.
It's like playing a deeply twisted game of The Sims inside your own head.
Oh, yeah, a twisted game of The Sims.
Like you're a biological adult now, right?
Yeah.
You're walking around in the real world. Maybe you're at the grocery store buying produce.
Just doing normal adult things.
Right. But simultaneously, inside your brain, you are running this eternal complex simulation.
Yeah.
There is a tiny virtual replica of yourself endlessly making virtual soup for your virtual demanding parents.
Yes.
Just to keep the internal alarms from going off so you can focus enough to buy your actual groceries.
That invisible labor is staggering. When you put it like making the virtual soup, it just highlights how much energy is being consumed.
It sounds exhausting.
And the tragedy, the really heartbreaking core of this is that running this game of The Sims is the only way the individual knows how to feel secure.
Because it's what they did to survive.
Exactly. Vaknin points out a crucial psychological concept here, resonance and conformity.
Resonance and conformity.
By creating this internal environment where the replica of the child perfectly manages the replicas of the parents, the brain creates a perfect match between the original external trauma and the current internal landscape.
Oh, the inside matches the outside.
Yes. And the brain loves predictability more than it loves happiness.
Really? Predictability over happiness.
Always. By making the inside match the outside, by endlessly playing out this exact same caregiving dynamic in the internal simulation, the individual secures the, quote, approval of the parental figures inside their own mind.
Wow.
It feels safe because it is familiar. It is a closed, self-sustaining loop. The child internalized the total situation, built an entire parallel environment in their mind, and they continue this exact arrangement well into adulthood.
It completely reframes how I look at people now.
How so?
Well, you know, when you see someone who is a chronic, quote-unquote, people pleaser,
Oh, right.
or someone who seems instantly overwhelmed by the slight change in mood of a boss or a partner, or someone who is just constantly burning out, they aren't just overreacting to the person in front of them.
No, not at all.
They're managing an entire invisible household inside their head. Every new demand in the real world is piled on top of the exhaustion of running that internal simulation.
That is the silent survival we talked about at the beginning. The sheer scale of what a parentified child survives and continues to survive every single day is monumental.
It really is monumental.
They didn't just lose their childhood in a physical house years ago. Their brain fundamentally reorganized itself to become a lifelong sanctuary.
Sanctuary.
Yes, but that sanctuary simultaneously functions as a prison. It's a prison designed solely to manage the emotional needs of the adults who are supposed to protect them.
A sanctuary that is also a prison.
Yeah.
Because it kept them alive. Like when they were 7 years old, holding the steering yoke of that crashing airplane building, that internal world kept them from completely breaking down.
It was a brilliant survival strategy at the time.
But when they are 35 and safely on the ground, they're still sitting in the cockpit in their mind, gripping the wheel, their knuckles totally white.
Exactly, which is why dismantling this is so incredibly difficult, but so vital.
How do you even begin to dismantle something like that?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power, right.
For an adult carrying this burden, simply understanding that this mechanism exists, realizing that you have this internal replica family running in the background is the first massive step.
Just seeing it for what it is.
Yes, it allows you to finally observe the system, rather than just being a victim of it. It's the first step to realizing that the alarms going off in your head, the desperate, panicky demands to caretake, to soothe, to fix everyone around you, those alarms belong to a past reality.
Not the present.
Right, they do not belong to the present moment.
So you can finally look at your phone, see the push notification from that background app, and recognize that the notification is 20 years old. You don't have to answer it. You don't have to make the virtual soup anymore.
Precisely. You can begin the slow, deliberate work of turning off the simulation. You can start uninstalling the app.
Which leaves us with one final, very heavy thing to utter on for everyone listening.
Right.
Based on everything we've explored, this permanent, demanding mental architecture, the closed loop of the internal family. If a parentified adult's mind is already completely occupied by this internal simulated family, where their mental energy is trapped as the eternal caregiver to these parent avatars, what happens when that adult tries to experience real love?
That is the big question.
What happens when they try to date or get married or, have a real biological child of their own? How on earth does a real living, breathing partner or child compete for emotional energy with the demanding, invisible family that is already screaming for attention inside their mind?
It's an incredibly profound challenge, because until that internal simulation is dismantled, there's simply no vacancy for a real family.
No vacancy. Wow. It really makes you appreciate the incredible resilience of people walking around with this.
Absolutely.
You look at them and they look completely fine. But you're looking at someone who is carrying an entire invisible world.